Welcome back. We are live listening to the Lori Vallow Daybell hearing, and we have Dr. James Davidson on the stand. He's an expert witness. Let's go back live. And listening to forensic expert Dr. Davidson, and he's talking about when Rob Wood was, quote unquote, interviewing Summer. Joseph, let me ask you this question. It's kind of scary when you listen to Dr. Davidson, because if I were a prosecutor, I would not want to ask a witness anything in the investigation, because he's breaking it down and he's saying almost everything that Wood said was problematic. What are your thoughts?
Good Lord. I mean, he's okay. So I guess Prosecutor Wood has to be an LDS theologian, because he's inside the inner circle. He has to have perception and knowledge relative to that and how that might play into this bias construct. By the way, he also has to have knowledge of the read technique, which there is no establishment for that. Did he ever go through training for the read technique? I can't believe they haven't objected to that yet, because that is specific training. It's not something you just throw out there. Has he ever been trained in the read technique? But yet this is just allowed, and he makes comments about that. Oh, and by the way, he has to have enough perception on his part that he can understand best practices. Well, what are they? What's the foundational document for best practices? Is there an SOP that the prosecutor's office has? Are they going on best practices established by the FBI, the Department of Justice? Where, or is it from? I don't know, the American Psychological Association. I don't understand it. So they're throwing a lot at the judge here that he's having to weigh in this, and and you're right, Terry. Why in the world would you want to stick your neck out and even ask a single question here? Because the parameters seem to be tightening all along. I'll be very interested to see what Mr. Evans and Mr. Wood have to say in response to this.
Right, I agree. I think I would have been objecting as they were going along there. We've been listening live on the Daybell hearing, and that's Dr. Davidson who is on the stand. I have with me Joseph Scott Morgan. The one thing I wanted to ask you about, Joseph, is the fact that there was a question or two from Summer about Tylee's death and the cause of the death and whether or not that's going to be asserted. And, you know, Davidson said maybe Wood should not have said anything about that because he's giving her information. I did think that was a valid point. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, she's a family member. She wants to know what the status of Tylee is. He gave her a bit of, I think, misleading information. He said that she was at the FBI state of the art crime lab. The FBI doesn't do autopsies. Tylee was examined in Boise at the coroner's office there. So I don't know if he was actually referring to evidence. He mentioned the DNA evidence. I think that came up in a conversation. So that was kind of an interesting comment. But this Dr. Davison is kind of selectively choosing words. He's used idioms like the horns of a dilemma, but yet he dismisses uh, cognitive dissonance as a fancy $5 term. But yet, we're hearing terms like cognitive bias, confirmatory bias, acquisition bias, of all things. I don't know about you, Terry. I don't use those terms in everyday language. And he's kind of selectively kind of moving through this. And of course, I think that Pryor's attempting to use this to his advantage. Yeah, I think that Wood probably should have just stuck to the facts, but I just want to hear the facts here as well. If I'm the judge, just trying to make a determination. Without selective verbiage here. I find this whole interaction very interesting, and again, I think that this is going to be interesting the way this shakes out for the judge. Going back to something we've already talked about with the re technique and and Wood's utilization of this technique, because the technique itself has got kind of this. It's always been painted by defense attorneys in this ominous manner. So, just to throw that specter up,
Right.
suddenly invalidates anything that might be going on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've learned a lot of terms too. Welcome back, everyone. You have been listening to the Lori Vallow Daybell hearing, and I have with me Joseph Scott Morgan. And on the stand was Dr. Davidson talking about the meet and greet that was going on prior to when Rob Wood was technically going to have his investigator interview Summer during this investigation. And clearly, Davidson thinks that there was a lot of influence overall. And, Joseph, I am just thinking to myself that there wasn't anything that Wood said during this interview process, this meet and greet, that was acceptable as far as Davidson was concerned. His overall, conclusion was that it strained credulity and that clearly Rob Wood was trying to get Summer to say what he wanted to say. Is that how you felt the whole, meet and greet or 18 minutes went?
Yeah. Yeah, that was his takeaway. And the difference between forensic psychology and other forensic practices, so that everyone understands. In this particular instance, there is no quantitative finding that you can apply to this. It's not like disbursement of gunpowder on a shirt, or even a toxicological finding, or certainly the reading of DNA. Those are quantitative findings. All of the stuff that he is saying is obviously his opinion. He's been deemed an expert, but it's highly subjective. Okay, so we have to understand that. And he rendered an opinion there. He stated it fully, that he believes that there was influence used against Summer, and so that's left us with an interesting conundrum. I think we think about witnesses on the stand in court having their feet put to the fire, as it were, being cross-examined and direct examined and that sort of thing. This is a prosecutor. Where does that leave the judge? I think that I would flip that back to you as an attorney. You know, where does this leave this jurist? His this decision that, trust me, this is going to send out ripples, shockwaves, if you will. The decision that this judge has to make here as to whether or not he's going to recommend that Wood be taken off of the case, or whatever the case might be. And then where do you go? Where do you pull in another special prosecutor for this? Do you ask the state of Idaho to do this? It creates a myriad of problems. I think at the end of the day, maybe that's the end game here. Maybe we want to create even more confusion and frustration in an already confused and frustrated set of circumstances surrounding these deaths.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. So that was a Zoom call of the hearing, but during that hearing, the recording, the secret recording, was being played. And Joseph, that was Rob Wood's voice. And he was talking to Summer, sort of setting up the situation. Anything during that little bit that we heard that made you think he was trying to influence her unduly?
No, we talked earlier, Terry, about a meet and greet. I was looking for coffee and donuts, all right, but I wound up here and didn't find them. Uh, and so I think about this, and it really does seem like he's just kind of laying the groundwork here. What's this all about? Um, if you're, and I'm just suggesting this. If you're a person that's never been in this world, and I'm talking about the legal world, where you're in, the oak paneled offices with all the leather bound books, and you've got this guy that's a prosecutor and he's talking to you. It's like being set down on Mars sometimes to just a civilian. You're just not used to this. It's a foreign environment. Maybe he's just trying to make her comfortable at this point, just to understand what's going on. And let's keep this in mind. This is not just simply, not that there's necessarily a run of the mill homicide case, but my gosh, Terry, this thing is so multi-layered and covers so much uh, territory, both literally and figuratively, from the narrative to the geographic expanse of this thing. um, wouldn't you want to be made comfortable? I mean, because I think that even at this point, she understands how vast this thing is, how far it goes. And yeah, her sister's life is on the line. But my God, how many times have you and I both been involved in cases where, people, siblings, they may have had their lives on the line too?
Right.
And this goes to other issues.
I'm with you 100%. I definitely think he was just trying to make her comfortable. If you find those coffee and donuts, let me know. I'm starving, but let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be live.